I stood in the living room, adjusting the collar of my blouse for the 100th time. The sound of laughter drifted in from the backyard, where the family gathering was in full swing. My brother Ryan had been looking forward to introducing us to his fiancée for weeks. I had heard enough about her from Mom. Jenna was the charmer, the looker, the perfect catch. But I was nervous. Taking a deep breath, I stepped outside. Ryan spotted me and waved, calling Jenna over. She floated across the yard in a sundress, a perfect image of graciousness. "Hi, Jenna. I'm Emily. Really happy to finally meet you," I said, extending my hand. Jenna looked me up and down, then grinned, a grin that didn't reach her eyes. She took my hand, her grip surprisingly firm. "Oh, you're Emily? I thought you'd be younger, or at least prettier." I blinked, stunned by the casual cruelty in her words. My cheeks burned, but before I could respond, Ryan's arm wrapped around Jenna's waist, pulling her close. "You two finally met. Isn't she great?" His eyes sparkled with genuine joy. "Yeah." I forced a smile, feeling the sting of Jenna's comment deep within. "Great." Ryan, oblivious to the tension, guided us to a table where our mom, Claire, sat with Mark, my husband. Mark immediately rose to pull out a chair for me. "Emily," Mom said with a soft smile, "Jenna was just telling us about her plans to redecorate Ryan's place." "Yes," Jenna chimed in, her voice dripping with charm. "Ryan's taste needs a little update." "Oh, really?" I replied, trying to keep my voice even. "What do you have in mind?" "Something more sophisticated," Jenna said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "But practical. Unlike some styles." Her gaze flickered over me again. Mark squeezed my hand under the table. I knew he could sense my discomfort. "I'm sure whatever you choose will be lovely, Jenna," he said diplomatically, as Claire shifted in her chair, her frail frame looking even more delicate as she tried to catch Ryan's eye. "Ryan, have you thought about the house taxes due next month?" Ryan waved a hand dismissively. "Mom, don't worry. Jenna and I will handle it. Right, babe?" "Of course," Jenna answered smoothly. "We'll take care of everything." Dinner was announced, saving me from further humiliation. I busied myself setting the table and kept my interactions with Jenna to a minimum. But every time I caught her eye, there was a smug satisfaction that unnerved me. After dinner, I found myself in the kitchen, scrubbing dishes with a little more force than necessary. Mark came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Hey, you okay?" I sighed, leaning into him. "Did you hear what she said?" "Yeah, I heard," he whispered. "Don't let it get to you. She might be trying to test your patience." "Well, she's doing a good job." Just then, Jenna walked in, her heels clicking on the tile. "Emily, we're out of wine. Could you grab another bottle?" My jaw tightened, but I nodded. "Sure." As I reached for the wine, Jenna leaned against the counter, watching me. "You know, Ryan talks about you a lot. He says you were a big shot in marketing. What happened?" I stiffened, focusing on the wine bottle. "I wanted to be there for my family." She responded, a hint of mockery in her tone. "Interesting choice." Holding my breath, I handed her the bottle. She smiled that same cold, calculating smile and walked away. "Emily, don't let her get to you," Mark said softly, his touch grounding me. I nodded, but as the evening continued, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jenna wasn't just testing my patience. She was challenging my place in my own family, and the game had just begun. The gathering finally thinned out, and Jenna's words still echoed in my mind as I tidied up the living room. My thoughts were interrupted by a gentle touch on my arm. "You've been quiet tonight," Mark said. His eyes were filled with concern. I forced a smile. "Just tired. It's been a long day." Trying to distract myself, I started recalling my earlier days with Mark. Back then, life was a whirlwind of deadlines and high-paced meetings. I was a marketing executive with 10 campaigns running simultaneously. Mark was always there, waiting for me with a smile and an understanding heart. "Remember when we got that last-minute promotion for the wellness brand?" I asked, a faint hint of nostalgia in my voice. Mark laughed. "How could I forget? You worked through the night, and we celebrated with takeout on your office floor." Those were the days, I sighed, trying to shake a growing sense of loss. The career I once thrived in was now a distant memory, replaced by quiet domesticity. That transition seemed fine until it became a little more complicated, mostly because of our struggle to conceive. "Emily, come join us." Mark pulled me back to the present, leading me towards the kitchen where Jenna and Ryan were chatting with Mom. "Hey, Emily." Ryan greeted, his grin as wide as ever. We're planning an engagement party soon. Jenna thought it would be great to have it at your place. I swallowed hard. Sure, sounds great, I lied. Jenna's eyes glinted with what felt like a calculated confidence. We want everyone to see how close we all are, she said sweetly. Yeah, it'll be a chance to show off the house, Ryan added, oblivious to the tension building. Emily will have it sparkling, won't you, dear? Jenna remarked, smugness barely hidden in her tone. Of course, I replied, suppressing my irritation. Later that night, Mark and I lay in bed, the room silent except for the hum of the ceiling fan. Mark, do you think she knows? I asked. Knows what? About our issues. The word felt heavy on my tongue. Mark sighed deeply, pulling me closer. No, Emily, she was probably just taking a cheap shot. I hope you're right, I whispered, though unease stayed with me. The following weeks were a blur of preparations for the engagement party. Jenna had a knack for undermining everything I did, whether it was the choice of decorations or the menu. Mark was my pillar, supportive, kind, and endlessly patient. One day, as I was setting out the china Jenna insisted on, Mom came to join me. You've done a beautiful job, sweetheart, she said, her voice warm. Thanks, Mom. I just want everything to be perfect for them. Well, don't wear yourself out. Jenna might be testing you. Yes, I can feel that, I said, forcing a bright smile. Ryan entered the room, still cheerfully oblivious to his fiancée's barbs. Jenna, trailing behind him, offered up another biting comment. Emily, those flowers seem a bit, how should I put this, tacky, don't you think? My grip tightened around the vase, but I nodded politely. I'll change them. The engagement party loomed closer, each day a fresh battle to maintain my composure against Jenna's relentless jabs. Mark sensed my growing anxiety, but could only offer limited solace. One evening, as we sat in our dimly lit living room, Jenna's words from weeks earlier gnawed at me. I dreaded the party, knowing she relished each moment of discomfort she caused me, only deepened the pit in my stomach. Emily, we'll get through this, Mark whispered, enfolding me in a comforting embrace. As much as I wanted to believe him, a small voice inside me warned that Jenna's true intentions were far from innocent. Each calculated move she made hinted at a deeper, more insidious goal. The proverbial storm was brewing, and somehow I had to brace for the impact. Just as I started to feel like I had a handle on things, life threw another curveball. One evening, Mark and I were having a quiet dinner when my phone rang. Emily, it's Ryan. His voice sounded strained. Mom's had a fall. She's in the hospital. My heart sank. Is she okay? Her hip is broken, he replied, his worry palpable. The doctors say she'll need weeks of recovery. I'll be there right away, I said, grabbing my keys. At the hospital, Claire looked so fragile in the hospital bed. She gave a weak smile when she saw us. I'll be fine, she reassured, but her voice was tired. Just takes time. On the drive home, Mark and I discussed her care. It was clear she couldn't stay alone. She'll need to stay with us, I said, more to myself than to Mark. He nodded, his hand squeezing mine supportively. When Ryan heard the news, he was quick to agree. Of course, Emily. Mom will be comfortable at your place. Jenna and I can help out as much as possible. The day Claire moved in was a whirlwind. Mark set up the guest room to be as comfortable as possible. Jenna showed up with an exaggerated sigh. Well, looks like this place is going to be busier, she remarked. Mom will need a lot of support, I said simply. Don't worry, I'll help, Jenna said, but the gleam in her eye suggested this was more of a burden than a promise. Days turned into weeks. Claire's presence was a welcome one, but caring for her was challenging. Jenna would pop in and out, claiming to offer help, but often doing the opposite. One particularly tough morning, I was trying to help Claire with her exercises while Jenna stood by, offering nothing but criticism. You're not doing it right, Emily, she snapped. Mom needs professional help, not whatever this is. I'm doing the best I can, I responded, biting back my frustration. Clearly it's not enough, Jenna shot back, her words sharp and cutting. Ryan arrived later, unaware of Jenna's abrasive comments. How's everyone holding up? He asked, looking far too cheerful for the situation. Peachy, I muttered, forcing a smile. That night, Jenna announced, I'll be staying here from now on. Ryan's busy with work, and I can't let everything fall on poor Emily. Her words sent a chill down my spine. The idea of Jenna living under our roof was disheartening, but Claire needed all the help she could get. I appreciate it, I said, feeling the weight of her manipulation. Jenna quickly settled in, and her true nature became more evident. She was dominant and rude, making Claire and me feel like guests in our own home. One evening, Jenna made a scene over dinner. "This food is awful, Emily." "No wonder you're not having any kids," she sneered, adding a cruel laugh. Mark's face darkened, but he remained silent, not wanting to escalate the situation. Claire gave me a sympathetic look, but I felt alone in my own home. The days bled together. Jenna criticized my every move, finding fault with everything from my cooking to my cleaning. Her cruel remarks about my fertility stung the most, piercing an already tender wound. Despite it all, I tried to stay strong. Mark and Claire's quiet support helped, but Jenna's presence was a constant drain on my spirit. One night, after another exhausting day, Claire took my hand. "You're stronger than you know, Emily," she whispered. "I just have to keep going," I replied, more to myself than to her. The endurance it took to maintain my composure reminded me that sometimes the strongest battles are those fought within the home. And as much as Jenna thought she was winning, she underestimated the resilience of my love for my family. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window as I stood, spatula in hand, flipping pancakes. Claire sat at the table, silently reading the newspaper. Jenna strutted in, her heels clicking sharply on the tile. "Morning, Emily," she said, eyeing the breakfast spread with that familiar smirk. "Pancakes again? You really should vary your menu." I forced a polite smile. "Claire likes pancakes." Jenna scoffed. "Well, Claire would probably like a lot of things if she had a chance to try them." I bit back a retort, focusing instead on getting breakfast served. Mark entered, his presence a welcome distraction. He kissed my forehead, then greeted Claire with a warm smile. "Morning, everyone," he said cheerfully. "Smells great, Em." Jenna watched us, her eyes narrowing. "Mark, have you ever thought about cooking breakfast? Might give Emily a break." He raised an eyebrow. "I suppose I could, but Emily doesn't mind. Right, Emily?" Jenna's tone dripped with feigned sweetness, a challenge hidden beneath. "Yeah, I don't mind," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. The day progressed with its usual chaos. Jenna's criticisms became a constant hum. Too much salt in the soup, not enough cleaning in the corners, and the usual sting about our childless home. In the afternoon, Claire and I settled in the living room for her exercise routine. Jenna sat nearby, offering a snide comment every few minutes. "You're doing it wrong again, Emily. Honestly, it's like you're trying to make things worse." I took a deep breath, focusing on Claire. "It's okay, Mom," I said, helping her to stretch. She gave me a grateful smile, her faith in me the only thing keeping me balanced. Later, while cleaning the kitchen, Jenna confronted me. "You're really struggling, aren't you, Emily?" she said, her voice low and taunting. "What do you mean?" I asked, keeping my hands busy with the dishes. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "This whole domestic goddess act isn't fooling anyone. You can't even have kids, let alone run a household properly." I gripped the edge of the sink, willing myself to stay calm. Her words were like poison, designed to find my deepest insecurities. "You don't know what you're talking about," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "Don't I?" Jenna laughed. "Just you wait, Emily. It's only a matter of time before it all falls apart." Mark and Claire's voices in the hallway saved me from responding. Jenna slipped away, leaving me to steady my racing heart. That evening, I prepared dinner, aware of every watchful glance Jenna threw my way. She criticized my cooking nonstop. "This is overcooked," she said, pushing her plate away. "No wonder Ryan always prefers dining out." "Enough, Jenna," Mark finally snapped, his patience running thin. "You're a guest here, remember?" Jenna's eyes flashed with anger, but she said nothing, just silently fuming. After dinner, as I cleaned up, Mark joined me. "We need to talk," he said softly, his voice heavy with worry. "Jenna's behavior can't continue like this." "I know," I replied, feeling drained. "But what can we do? She's Ryan's fiancée, and Mom needs all the help she can get." "We'll figure something out," Mark assured, wrapping his arms around me. "We have to." That night, in the quiet of our bedroom, I let myself feel the weight of the day's events. Mark was right, something had to give. Jenna's presence was tearing at the fabric of our home, and with each passing day, I could feel things fraying further. As I drifted off to sleep, one thought lingered in my mind. Resilient though I might be, even the strongest rope snaps under enough pressure. Tomorrow I would need to find a way to regain control, whatever it took to protect my family from Jenna's insidious influence. The day of the engagement party finally arrived. The house hummed with activity as I put the finishing touches on the decorations. Jenna hovered nearby, overseeing every detail like a hawk. "Those flowers need to be moved," she commanded, pointing to the centerpiece. I complied, feeling her ever-watchful eyes boring into me. Guests started arriving, and I pasted on a welcoming smile despite the knot in my stomach. Everyone mingled, complimenting the decorations and food, most of which Jenna had insisted on. During a lull, Ryan found me by the kitchen. "Emily, everything looks fantastic," he said, genuinely thankful. "I appreciate all your hard work." "Thanks, Ryan," I replied, trying to keep the fatigue out of my voice. Moments later, Jenna appeared, linking her arm with Ryan's. "Isn't it wonderful, Ryan?" She beamed, but her smile faltered when she looked at me. "Emily, could you check on the appetizers? They seem to be disappearing fast." "Sure," I said, heading back to the kitchen. As I replenished the trays, Mark walked in. "You're doing great, Em. Just a little longer." His encouragement was a small but vital lifeline. I filled the trays with renewed determination. No sooner had I stepped back into the living room when Jenna's voice rang out, loud and cutting through the chatter. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" she called, raising a glass. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. "I'd like to toast to my wonderful fiancé, Ryan, and the supportive family he has." Everyone lifted their glasses, murmuring in agreement. Then Jenna's smile turned into something more sinister. "And let's not forget the amazing Emily, who, despite not having children of her own, can throw one heck of a party." A painful silence followed her words, each one hitting like a physical blow. I felt the color drain from my face as whispers started circulating the room. Mark's eyes darkened with anger, but he kept silent. His jaw clenched. Claire quickly intervened, her voice steady but strained. "Let's all enjoy this lovely evening, shall we?" Ryan seemed oblivious to the tension. "To family," he declared, raising his glass higher. "To family," I echoed weakly, forcing a smile. Jenna's gaze lingered on me, victorious. Later, as the guests circulated, Mark pulled me aside. "That was uncalled for," he fumed. "She crossed the line." I nodded, throat tight with unshed tears. "She won't stop until she's driven me away." "We won't let her," he said firmly. "Something's got to give." The evening dragged on, each bite of forced small talk more bitter than the last. As the night wound down and the last of the guests filtered out, Ryan approached me. "Emily, Jenna didn't mean anything by it," he said, his voice pleading for understanding. "Ryan, I started, but Jenna materialized next to him, her face a perfect mask of innocence. "It was just a joke, Emily." She cooed. "Can't you take a little joke?" I bit back a retort, simply nodding before turning away. As I retreated to the sanctuary of my bedroom, I heard Mark's voice behind me. "We'll talk in the morning," he said, his hand warm on my shoulder. "Get some rest." I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. The engagement party had become a battleground, and Jenna had fired the first shot. There was no mistaking her intentions now. She aimed to push me out entirely. With Mark by my side and Claire's quiet strength bolstering me, I knew I couldn't let Jenna win. In the quiet of our home that night, I realized something had to change. For my sanity, for my family, for everything Jenna was slowly and methodically trying to destroy. Tomorrow would be the first step towards reclaiming my peace. Whatever it took, I was ready. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when the house erupted into chaos. I was in the kitchen preparing lunch when I heard raised voices coming from the living room. Heart-pounding, I hurried to the source. There stood Jenna, flanked by a furious Ryan. His face was red, and he clenched his fists at his sides. Jenna, as always, wore a mask of feigned innocence, but even she couldn't hide the glint of panic in her eyes. "What's going on?" I asked, tension filling the room. Ryan's voice was tight with anger. "I came home early and found Jenna with another man," he seethed. Jenna stepped forward, her tone desperate. "Ryan, it's not what it looks like. They're lying to you. Emily must have set this up." I felt my own anger rising. "Is that really the best you can do, Jenna? Blame me for your actions?" Ryan's face twisted with confusion and hurt. "How could you do this, Jenna? After everything? Ryan, you have to believe me. This is all a setup. Emily has hated me from the start. She wants to break us apart." Jenna screeched, eyes wild. "I saw it with my own eyes, Jenna," Ryan shouted back. How can you stand there and lie to my face? Mark appeared behind me, his hand on my shoulder. Ryan, you know your sister. Do you really think she'd do something like this? Ryan's face softened momentarily as he looked at Mark, then hardened again as he turned back to Jenna. Is this who you really are, Jenna? This isn't what I signed up for. Ryan, please, Jenna pleaded, her voice breaking. You have to believe me. They're lying. I love you. Ryan's face crumpled with hurt and realization. I can't do this anymore, Jenna. We're done, Jenna screamed, launching into a tirade. You'll regret this. I'll make sure you all pay. None of you know what I'm capable of. Claire, who had been silently watching, finally spoke. We should have seen your true colors earlier, she said softly. Ryan turned away from Jenna, walking towards the door. Get your things and leave, he said quietly but with finality. I don't want to see you again. Jenna's eyes darted around the room, seeking any kind of support, but found none. You'll all regret this, she hissed before storming out. The silence that followed was heavy. Ryan sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. The weight of betrayal and heartbreak was clear. Mark gently steered me to the kitchen, leaving Claire and Ryan some space. Are you okay? He asked, his concern evident. Yeah, I said, exhaling deeply. Just relieved it's over. But something gnawed at the back of my mind. Jenna's threat wasn't one to be taken lightly. I knew her too well to think this would be the end. As the day turned into night, the house settled into an uneasy calm. I lay in bed beside Mark, thinking about Ryan. His grief was palpable, and I wished there was some way to ease his pain. Morning came with a certain sense of resolve. The storm had passed, but we all knew Jenna. She'd fight back. The challenge now was staying ahead of her, protecting our family from whatever venom she planned to spill next. In the end, I knew one thing for sure. United as a family, we were stronger than any storm Jenna could summon, and together we'd face whatever came next. A few days passed, and the house returned to a fragile calm. Ryan appeared more withdrawn, grappling with his own heartache. Claire and I did our best to provide some semblance of normalcy, though the shadow of Jenna's last threat loomed over us. One evening, as Mark and I were preparing dinner, I noticed Ryan pacing in the living room. His phone buzzed continuously, and each time he glanced at it, his expression grew more troubled. Something wrong? I asked, concerned. Ryan looked up, his eyes tired and filled with worry. Jenna's been sending me messages accusing you of setting her up and threatening to ruin our family. Mark sighed, setting down the knife he was using to chop vegetables. We knew she wouldn't take this lying down. Feeling the weight of Ryan's distress, I walked over and placed a hand on his shoulder. Ryan, she's trying to manipulate you. Don't let her get in your head. I know, he said, rubbing his temples, but it's hard. She accused you of planning to steal Mom's savings and pin it on her. I felt anger surge through me. That's absurd. We need to figure out a way to expose her lies. Just then, Mark's eyes lit up with an idea. There might be a way, he said. What if we check Mom's accounts for any suspicious activity? If Jenna's been planning something, there might be evidence already there. Ryan nodded, a renewed determination on his face. Let's do it. Later that night, the three of us sat around the kitchen table with Claire, looking through her bank statements. At first, everything seemed in order, but then Ryan's eyes widened as he pointed to a recent large withdrawal, one Claire didn't recognize. That's it, Ryan said, eyes blazing. She was planning to pin this on you if she got caught. Mark immediately reached for his phone. We need to report this to the police and get some legal advice. The next few days were a whirlwind. We went to the authorities with our evidence, and they promised to look into Jenna's activities. The tension was thick, the anxiety palpable. One evening after dinner, the doorbell rang. Ryan opened the door to find Jenna standing there, her expression twisted with anger and desperation. How dare you? She spat. You went to the police? Yes, Jenna, Ryan said calmly, standing firm. There's no more room for your lies. We know what you were planning. She stepped forward, her eyes wild. This isn't over. I'll find a way to ruin you all. Mark moved to stand beside Ryan, his face hard. Leave, Jenna. You're not welcome here anymore. Claire's voice cut through the tension, soft yet unyielding. Jenna, it's over. We see you for who you are. Leave us in peace. For a moment, Jenna glared at each of us, her fury almost tangible. Then, with a final glare, she turned on her heel and stormed off. As the door closed, a heavy silence filled the room. Mark turned to Ryan, his expression softening. "Are you okay?" Ryan nodded slowly, the weight of recent events visible on his face. "I think so. Thank you for standing by me." The days that followed brought progress. The police confirmed Jenna's attempt to embezzle Claire's savings, providing a small victory amidst the chaos. One afternoon, as we sat together in the living room, Ryan broke the silence. "I'm so sorry for not seeing Jenna's true nature earlier. I should have trusted you." "Families stick together," I replied, smiling gently. "We're just glad you're safe." Ryan looked relieved, the guilt starting to lift. "Thanks, Emily, for everything." As night fell, I felt a sense of justice. The storm Jenna brought was subsiding, and while there were still challenges ahead, at least we faced them together. Finally, there was hope. Our family, stronger now than ever, could start to heal and rebuild the peace Jenna had tried so desperately to shatter. The aftermath of Jenna's departure was like a slow return to normality. For the first time in a long while, the house felt lighter, infused with a quiet sense of relief. But we knew we weren't entirely out of the woods. Jenna's parting threat lingered at the back of our minds. A week later, Claire and I were sitting together in the bright morning light, enjoying our coffee. She seemed more at ease, her frailty less pronounced. "Emily," she said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I think it's time for me to consider moving into an assisted living community. I've been researching a place close by." My instinct was to protest, but then I saw the resolve in her eyes. "If that's what you want, Mom, we'll support you." The conversation was seamless, smooth even. No hidden edges, no lingering resentment, just mutual understanding. It felt like a turning point. Later that day, I shared the news with Mark. "Mom's decided to move into an assisted living community." He raised an eyebrow, then nodded. "It's probably for the best. She'll get the care she needs and we can still visit her often." Things began to fall into place. We arranged for Claire's move, ensuring her transition would be smooth and comfortable. As the moving day arrived, the family came together, each of us taking turns to help her settle in. Ryan, although still nursing wounds left by Jenna, stepped up, offering his unyielding support. "Mom, this place is great," he said, trying to keep the mood light. "You're going to love it here." Claire smiled warmly at her son. "I know I will. And you'll visit often, won't you?" "Of course," he promised. Once Claire was comfortably settled, Mark and I started thinking about our own future. Sitting at the kitchen table one evening, Mark looked at me thoughtfully. "Emily, I've been thinking, what if we considered adoption?" My heart skipped a beat. Adoption was something we'd talked about, but always hesitated on. But now, after everything that had happened, it felt like a real possibility, a way to rebuild and find new hope. "I've been thinking about it too," I admitted, my voice tinged with excitement. Over the next few months, we threw ourselves into the adoption process. It was both daunting and exhilarating, but it brought us closer. And while there were hurdles, the prospect of bringing a child into our home was a beacon of hope. One crisp fall morning, a letter arrived. It was from Ryan. I opened it, my breath catching as I began to read. "Dear Emily, I want to apologize for everything that happened. Not seeing Jenna's true nature, not protecting you. You stood by me when I couldn't see what was right in front of me. For that, I am forever grateful. You were the one who held this family together. I'm proud to be your brother, and I promise to be there for you just as you've been there for me. Love, Ryan." Tears filled my eyes as I handed the letter to Mark. "He's really trying to make things right," I said softly. Mark wrapped his arms around me. "We've come through so much, Em. And look, we're stronger for it." Claire's new living arrangements brought her peace and the space she needed to recover fully. We took turns visiting her, and each time she seemed happier, more at ease. On a sunny winter afternoon, as Mark and I walked hand in hand through the park, he squeezed my hand and said, "Finally, we can live in harmony and start focusing on our future again." His words were a balm, healing every wound Jenna had opened. I looked up at the sky, feeling a wave of serenity wash over me. Our family had weathered the storm, and now we stood on the brink of new beginnings. In the end, our family was stronger, more united than ever. And as we looked to the future, we did so with open hearts, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead.